Hi friends, hope you are doing fine. Today I am making a new video, and this video is about whether you should go for engineering or if you should go for being a scientist. So essentially this again is a problem which confronts people at the end of high school and also many parents who are looking to guide their sons and daughters. Now let us look at this problem very closely. I would say that toward the end of your high school, you have started realizing if you are good in sciences and mathematics. And here, the decision is essentially made by your liking or disliking of two subjects, and these are biology and mathematics. So it often happens that students have a liking for one or the other. So very frequently students like bio and they don't like math, and there are students who like math and they don't like bio. And the problem about math students not liking bio largely has to do with a lot of memorization which is involved in bio, and also sometimes these people may be somewhat squeamish about some of the experiments they need to perform on life forms. For example, they may not like to dissect frogs and so on. Now the bio guys typically have a problem with the abstraction in mathematics, and they start encountering problems not at the class 10 level but more at the later points. They do not quite seem to understand what is the need to do things such as integration, differentiation, complex numbers. Why should one have cube roots? Why should you even care about the cube roots of 1, and so on. So at such a point, these students who like bio start getting lost in the mathematics class, and then they often either leave the mathematics stream or they settle for some more normal version of mathematics which is sufficient for their further studies. So again, there are some schools which give you this option of just studying basic math such as polynomials, geometry, some basic trigonometry and so on, and then move on to your further studies. So today we are going to not discuss these people who are more biocentric. I have made a separate video on that where I compare doctor versus scientist. So that's for these people. So today we are going to talk about people who like mathematics. And very often people who like math and physics are often told by their teachers and their counselors to go for engineering. Now this is often a reasonable piece of information, but you need to be very careful about making a choice just being good in mathematics and physics and so on. So let me tell you why some of these things are important. One thing which has happened is that today the study of mathematics is very abstract, it's very theoretical, it's largely based on theorems and proofs. And therefore the mathematics you encounter in your class 12 level is often what you typically study for engineering, and it is sufficient for that. So essentially you may be studying calculus, you may be studying matrix theory, you may be studying basic aspects of differential equations, trigonometry, coordinate geometry and so on. But what is actually taught in colleges in terms of mathematics is actually very abstract, and so you start studying real numbers, then you go on and study all the things beyond real numbers. You may study topology, group theory, the different kind of methods in terms of proofs and so on. So whatever you are doing in your class 12 may not give you a good background as to how well you are going to do in mathematics. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, if we look at typical engineering curriculum, here you do a lot of problem solving. So essentially, if you take any book on physics, you will find that there are a large number of problems to be solved here. But that's not what physicists typically do. In fact, when I was doing my PhD, there was a physics student there who was doing his PhD, and he kept telling me that all you engineers are doing is spending your lifetime on one chapter of physics, which is mechanics. And mechanics is something which physicists are not really interested in anymore, except they teach it as a class. They are interested in much bigger problems of physics, whether it has to do with string theory, whether it has to do with particles, and so on. So again, keep in mind that both physics and mathematics are actually now very different from what is taught often in the high school curriculum. So you cannot totally decide based on high school whether you want to study these subjects. So I would say that if you can delay this particular decision of engineering versus scientist to maybe the first year or the second year of your college, if you are in a system which permits such a delay, because that would allow you to actually see whether you are really interested in the more abstract and more fundamental nature of the problems, or you are actually interested in using these problems to work quickly in industry and get a job and probably be closer to the market, which in turn will help you make more money. Now, one of the fields where there is a lot of convergence between mathematics and engineering is computer science, and also data science and some of these streams. And this has happened because essentially when you are dealing with data, you are dealing with vectors and matrices, or what some people like to call tensors. And therefore, all the tools which you develop in mathematics, be they matrix theory, or it could be calculus, or it could be statistics and probability, all these get immediately used in this field of how to use data to develop models, how to use data to get a better understanding of the world, how to use data to solve problems. So again, this is something very interesting to keep in mind, especially if you show a lot of proclivity towards mathematics. You should think about pursuing a degree in computer science or data science. And if you are not able to get admission into these programs, you can also do a degree in mathematics or statistics, and later you can take some courses in data science and Python and try to improve your knowledge in these areas, and this will land you a job in the data sciences. Now, as far as physics and mathematics is concerned, the typical possible jobs you can get just after graduation are sometime in industries, and also there are some forward thinking industries which may give you jobs, realizing that most physicists and mathematicians do have a lot of practical skills, but in some cases you may need to do a master's degree or a PhD to get a good job. Of course, there are a plethora of school teacher jobs out there which essentially require people with math, physics and chemistry backgrounds, but again you may need to do some extra qualification. Often there is a certification involved, there is a B.Ed degree involved or something like that. So keep that in mind, that the teacher industry is quite regulated. You need to do various certifications, and this also keeps changing between states and countries. So there are a lot of issues which are there which you need to settle after your bachelor's degree if you want to become a teacher. Now, if you are going for physics and math and you end up doing a PhD, then you will probably also need to do a postdoc for some years before landing a faculty position. Now, if we look at chemistry, that's actually a very fertile field, and I would say chemistry has more practical usage than many other fields, because a lot of the issues in terms of the polymers and various plastics which are made using them, and various things which are there in the chemical industry and also in the material science industry, essentially come out of chemistry. So chemistry is one of the sciences which has a lot of possibility. And again, you can of course do a BS in chemistry, then you can do a master's, and then you can do a PhD if you want to be a scientist. Or if you do not want to be a research scientist, you can do some of these BS and master's degree and then get a job in some industry, or you can also work as a teacher in these cases. So returning back to the choice, you can see this choice is quite complicated and difficult to make, and so it is always better if you can delay this choice slightly beyond your high school years. If not, I would suggest that you go for the most general discipline which you can at this stage, because then you can always switch later and you will learn a lot of things, and later when you are doing your master's degree you can specialize in some particular field. Now, if you are somebody who doesn't like to do numerical problems at all, then I would say engineering is not a good option for you. You should go for the science stream. Similarly, I would say if you are a person who really likes to do experimental work, for example, you like chemistry experiments, you like physics experiments, then you should probably become a chemist or a physicist respectively, because you will then be able to do a lot of contribution based on experimental work. You may not need to know a lot of theoretical math and so on, or solve a lot of numerical problems. So again, some of these things will start becoming clear to you as you go through high school, and if possible you can postpone this decision. If not, go with a combination of your brain and your heart and make a decision. And generally later in life you can always switch between this and that. In fact, I know a plethora of people who studied engineering, but what happened is that they went for PhD, postdoc, and finally now what they do is mostly science. So that's something which is interesting to know. And I also know of people who studied science and then they started making things, developing things, and today I would say they are more of practitioners and closer to engineers than many scientists are. So that's certainly possible, and it can happen in your life also. So again, I hope you benefit from this video, and I will see you soon in a new video. See you then.